Do not settle for the crumbs. You should have the whole cake, the icing, and the cherry on top too.
All right, everybody, welcome to episode 1 of The Crumbs, a women's sport pod. Alice, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm going really well. I'm excited to be here, and I'm excited that everybody is going to learn about The Crumbs.
Yep.
Who are we? What are we doing? Well, we're here because we're talking all things women's sport, and we've based our name on a famous Billie Jean King quote, talking about women. Historically, it's been suggested they should be happy when they get the crumbs. Yep. And she wants women to have the cake, the icing and the cherry on top, and that's what we want too.
Yeah.
But for now, we're the crumbs because we haven't earned that, right?
Yes, exactly.
So we are here to talk all things women's sport, and we're really here for the next generation of women. And on the screen, obviously, Caitlin Clark, and she's going to be part of our discussion today. And our rundown is we're going to talk a little bit of WNBA.
Yep.
We're going to get into a little bit of a post-Olympics rundown. We're going to move into a bit of cricket. And, of course, there's no real pod without talking about some kind of GOAT. So we are going to talk a little Opals/LJ action. And we're going to finish off with a segment we're going to have every week called One to Watch. And you're going to lead the charge on that. Yep. So we're going to get straight into it and dig into this one. And I'm pumped about this. So I sort of followed the WNBA. Caitlin Clark, number 1 pick, Caitlin Clark effect, and I'm hooked. And I'm not just watching the Indiana Fever, I'm watching women's basketball, and it's bloody awesome. I love it. First half of the season, Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese, the 2 rookies, they were really the story. That was the drama. There was on-court action, a little bit of biffo, some heavy-handed stuff going on with Caitlin Clark. She handled it really well. And then we get to the All-Star game.
Yeah.
And, man, that was exciting. And, of course, the WNBA team defeated Team USA, who were preparing for the Olympics, which has happened before.
Yep.
But the story of the game almost was the no-look pass from Clark to Reese. And suddenly we're like, okay, these guys are mates now. What did you think of watching that?
Well, it literally summed it up, just one moment in the game, and all of a sudden everyone's changed their complete perspective on it. Because obviously their beef, as people like to call it, went back to college. Like, they played each other in that Final Four game, and that was where it all kind of started. And so there's been this narrative this whole time. I mean, I knew they were never enemies. I knew, like, off the court they probably were just like this. Like, obviously this is what people push the headline. But I think for people to see them play on the same team, I think that was great. And I think that one pass, I mean, if that's all it takes to change people's attitudes, then so be it. Like, it's a bit ridiculous when you think about it. But I think, hopefully now it's less them versus them, and it's just that they're 2 great players.
Yeah. As you said, like, the media driving a narrative. I mean, this is one of those theories. And I'm keen now because, like, what's the next drama that's going to unfold? What is the post WNBA All-Star Game / Olympics season look like? And we're back into action now. And I brought up this image because the Indiana Fever have put out some amazing mid-season stats. And, of course, 800 million social video views from April to July. Ranked number 1 among teams, but if you look at those teams, and the viewers at home can't see this, but ranked number 1 amongst teams in the WNBA, the NBA, the NFL, NHL, or MLB in video consumption from that April to July time span.
Crazy.
It's brilliant stuff. I'm hooked on the WNBA. I'll be watching for that next story and loving it, Alice. And we'll talk more about the WNBA and in particular the rookies and how the season's panning out over the next few weeks.
Incredible league.
But we're moving on now, and you want to talk a little bit about the Olympics and some of the things that happened.
Yeah, so obviously very successful Olympics just across the board. And I think for women in general, I've seen so many stats saying, I think it was something like 65% of the medals were won by women. I know in Australia, the Aussie women absolutely carried our medal tally by far. But just wanted to touch on the USA women's soccer team. Obviously, they have always been a dominant team like the basketball, but they kind of fell off a bit in the past few years. Obviously, last year's World Cup didn't make it out of the round of 16. Like, didn't even make it to the quarters. Like, they completely bombed out quite early. They did win bronze at Tokyo, so they have been in the Olympic medal kind of action recently. But to see them get back on top to the gold, I think it was a pretty cool thing to witness. Obviously, they have a new coach, Emma Hayes, very well-known coach, coached at Chelsea, obviously very successful there. That gold medal match was only the 10th game she's coached for that team, and she's won gold in her 10th game, which I think is pretty incredible.
Yeah.
And I think the team just in general, they had like 8 first-time Olympians in the team. A lot of people are chatting about the triple espresso trio. I don't know if you've heard of them, but consists of Mallory Swanson, Trinity Rodman and Sophia Smith. They actually scored 10 of the 12 goals that the USA women's team scored at Paris.
Wow.
They're like the new it girls, if you will. So I think those 3 in the next few years will absolutely carry the USA women's team. But just wanted to mention that because I think it was awesome. Obviously, I saw them at the World Cup last year, and I remember thinking, this isn't the USA women's team that we kind of know about, I guess. Like, everyone talks about them being dominant. So to see them, a new era as well, a lot of new players, pretty awesome. Because I guess here in Australia, we've just been hearing about the Matildas and obviously their campaign, which didn't go the way that most people probably wanted it to go. It was a bit disappointing. But they'll learn. They'll bounce back. Sometimes you got to have these moments. But I also want to touch on another moment from the Olympics, which I think is just incredible. And I'm not sure if many people have heard about it, but Sky Brown, who's a 16-year-old skateboarder for Great Britain, she actually tore her MCL in April and had to take 2 months off skateboarding. So that's already to your campaign. April.
That's insane.
She already had to take 2 months off that close to the Olympics. Then she came back and she was on track. And then a few days before her event in Paris, she dislocated her shoulder. She still went on to compete and win bronze. And I think that's just crazy. I mean, I don't even think anyone could even think about doing that themselves. She obviously won bronze in Tokyo, so she is a 2-time bronze medalist. But you just wonder, would she have gotten the gold maybe if she hadn't been, a bit riddled by injuries? But still, just an amazing achievement.
Yeah, what an amazing story. And probably one that a lot of people haven't heard of. So I'm really glad you brought that up. And yeah, what a run after injury. And we all know there's great stories at the Olympics, and often they are return from injury or return from some kind of challenge, and that's certainly up there with the best of them. I'm going to flip things here a little bit, and I'm going to talk about something that hasn't happened yet, but that I'm really excited about. And I'm not sure it's getting necessarily, obviously the Olympics have taken precedence, but the Women's Ashes is coming up early in 2025, starting in January, and we're hosting the Poms. Now, I'm a massive cricket fan. Women's cricket is growing, massively. We are hosting some T20s. We're then hosting some one-dayers. So the sort of summer season, I guess, kicks off in September. But it's in far north Queensland, so I guess it will be warm there.
Yeah, it classifies as summer.
Not for us. And then some one-dayers later in the year in December, but really the key here is this multi-format Ashes series, and this goes from strength to strength. And the women have been sort of talking about this for a while. They don't get to play a lot, and particularly test matches. Now, what excites me about this most is they are playing a day-night test to finish this. This is the conclusion of the Ashes. Day-night test at the MCG, the home of not just cricket, the home of sport in the world, potentially, in my opinion. They're hosting that, and I'm pumped. And this is the first time they are going to play cricket at the MCG women national team since the famous night, 86,174 people in March 2020, the night before we were locked down for COVID.
The world changed forever.
Won the T20 World Cup. Katy Perry on stage.
Katy Perry
Sophie
performed,
Molyneux dancing up a storm. The girls having a blast. Like pictures that are etched into my mind, and probably women's sports fans or sports fans in general.
Exactly.
But how pumped are you about that? Like, I'm getting a ticket. Like, I need to go to that.
Yeah, no, that's crazy. Because you think back to that game in 2020. I'm not a massive cricket fan, but like at that time, I was all over it because it was everywhere. Like it was, I reckon that was one of the first times I remember seeing women's sport like being the like headline and everything, because it was just incredible, like amazing. So for them to be able to get to do something similar again, I think it's just going to be incredible.
I feel like that was like the first sort of women's soccer World Cup type.
Yeah,
Like, you know,
exactly.
Matildas and women's football captured the nation. Like, this is what happened before that.
Yeah.
And then we kind of didn't get to see the momentum because COVID happened, we were locked down. It sort of got forgotten about a little bit. But I think this has the potential to, again, like, and they're playing across the country, so it's not just Melbourne, but I'm pumped. Can't wait.
That'd be amazing.
That's coming up, and we'll talk a bit more about that. But you want to talk Opals?
Yeah, Opals, my favourite topic. And I mean, why wouldn't you want to talk about them? 1 bronze, first time back on the podium since London. They've obviously had 2 pretty tough campaigns before Paris. But yeah, just an incredible tournament. I mean, I think everyone, when they dropped that first game to Nigeria, probably had their doubts. They're like, is this another repeat of Tokyo? But credit to the team, they bounced back. And I think there's just so much talent in that team. Obviously, the woman on the screen was kind of, I guess, the headline going into it, LJ the GOAT. I mean, all respect, a GOAT of the game, an absolute legend, gone to her 5th Olympics. I mean, that's insane. Not many people get to do that. But other people in the team, Ezzy, Alana Smith and Jade Melbourne, I think were some of the most dominant players in the tournament. Alana made the All-Star 5. Ezzy made the 2nd All-Star 5. And Jade was the rising star for the whole tournament. I mean, that's pretty incredible from the Aussies. So, yeah, we just love to see the Opals doing it.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes, you may.
So you're suggesting LJ shouldn't have been at the Olympics.
Look,
is that what you're saying?
I have my thoughts about it. I think if someone was to miss out on that team because of her taking up a spot, and if she, I mean, I think most people know she didn't get on the court much. I'm not sure why. We don't know why. No one really knows the reason for that. But my thinking is, I'm like, there are players like Darcy Garvin who probably were on that fringe, just missed out. If she had went, I'm sure she would have played game time a lot more than LJ. So I just question whether, obviously you've got the legacy and you've got all her achievements, but is that enough to make an Olympic team? Like, is it?
For
like,
the GOAT,
seriously?
Like, Alice, I respect, and this is why I love sport, because I love the
Yeah.
debate, but let's be real. You're taking the GOAT. A really well-respected colleague of mine has talked to me. He's a bit of a basketball nuffy, I must say. And he made a great point. You know, the culture of a team is not just on the court. It's not just during the minutes of the game. It's not just passing or shooting or you know, rebounding or whatever it is. It's not all the blocks. It is the stuff that happens in the locker room. It's the stuff that happens on the bench. You cannot tell me that she didn't play a significant role in that team winning a medal at an Olympic Games. All that experience at the Olympic level, a GOAT of basketball in general, jersey hanging at Climate Pledge Arena in Seattle. Come on.
I will say, obviously I wasn't in the locker room. I don't know what goes on behind the scenes, but I was at the Olympics and I watched that bench quite a bit. Got to admit, I did not really see her say much on that bench. If you looked at that bench, the people that were, I guess, leading, you know, encouraging, telling people maybe advice and stuff was Captain Tess Madgen, Christy Wallace. I just think we don't know what goes on behind the scenes. Maybe she was sharing her wisdom away from the game, but I thought on the bench she was quite silent. I was like, what is she bringing? If she's not on the court and on the bench she's not bringing much.
Yeah.
Is a legacy going to win you a medal? I mean, they won a medal, but
they won a medal. And I think this is what I'm saying. Like, I feel like, and there was a similar thing that happened for the Boomers, you know, with Joe Ingles, and he didn't really play, and it was questioned. But the reality for me is having someone of that ilk in and around your team, and I've played and coached a lot, there's some players who just have something that no one else has.
Yeah.
And you have to have them in your group. And if you don't have them, there's something missing. And sometimes it's not words and sometimes it's not wisdom. It's just the aura of them being around.
Physical presence.
I'm not in the inner sanctum either, or in the inner sanctum, but I will say I think the GOAT going was important. I think it was good for basketball. I think it was good commercially. And I love the fact that we're even talking commercial reasoning around women's sport, because historically we weren't. There was a massive story. I don't want to get off tangent too much, but half the women's basketball at the Olympics was a discussion about Caitlin Clark, who should have gone simply from a marketing perspective for the sport. Now, the fact that we're having that discussion, I think is bloody amazing, because 10 years ago, even less than that, no one cared and there was no money. And now there's a bunch of money and it's great for the sport. I don't think Caitlin Clark should have been there personally.
Yeah.
She hadn't earned the right yet, but she'll be there anyway in 4 years. So
she's got plenty up her
she'll
sleeve.
be in LA.
Oh,
But that's a good
100%.
take. I like that we can have those debates, and
Yeah.
I'm disagreeing with you and I'm right. All right,
Okay.
moving on. And you're going to take us through this one. So we're going to run a
Yep.
weekly segment called The One to Watch. And this is something of an issue in women's sport that is not happening on the field of play. It's happening sort of behind closed doors, or in this case, very publicly
Yeah.
via social media and other media outlets. Tell us about it.
Yeah. So, 3-time WNBA All-Star Dearica Hamby, who currently plays for the LA Sparks, earlier this week filed a lawsuit against her former team, the Las Vegas Aces, who she departed from at the start of last year, so at the start of 2023. At the time, massive outcry, because it came out that she posted a whole Instagram post with a whole caption about the whole situation. So we've known about this. This isn't the first time we've heard about this, but this week she did file an actual lawsuit for discrimination relating to her pregnancy that occurred. And she represented the US at Paris in the 3-on-3 a few weeks ago. But it's a pretty interesting one because they originally did a whole investigation into the Aces when it first came out against the coach, Becky Hammond. And not much was found. Like, nothing happened. I think Becky served like a 2-game suspension or something along those lines. And it was
So
quickly...
not following workplace like it was really regulation focused.
Yeah, and it was kind
from
of
a
like...
workplace
And then as
perspective.
soon as the suspension happened, it just kind of got forgotten about.
Yeah.
Obviously, Dearica was at her new team. That was kind of that. And then now this week, it's come out, an actual lawsuit. So it's started back up again. And I guess it'll be interesting to see what comes of it.
There's so
What
many
is your
layers
take on
to,
it?
well, there's so many layers, right? Because
Yeah.
when I was reading more about this and trying to sort of dig a bit deeper, I didn't realise that she played for the Aces. She's won multiple championships there,
Yep.
7 years, so 2015 to 2022. Pretty dominant for a team that's sort of risen up and become the benchmark.
Yeah.
And anyone who follows the WNBA knows that. But the little layers of you've talked about the other players who've been involved, and there's been an Aussie who's been there with a baby, or with kids involved. And this one for me, the outcome and following the media narrative for me are really important because women's sport grows, so do the workplace rights.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at this going, well, the Aces aren't a basketball team or organisation, they're a workplace.
Yeah.
So were they following by letter of the law workplace regulations? And this outcome is going to have ramifications in every sport around the world because, time off for pregnancy, childcare in the workplace, all these things, they're going to evolve.
Yeah.
And we're going to be following precedent. So this one for me is a real one to watch because the outcome has impact everywhere.
Because obviously, as you mentioned before, and what I found interesting at the time this all unfolded was the Aces had 2 mums playing on their team. Candace Parker, who is one of the GOATs, obviously. She had her 2 kids. And then Kayla George, the Aussie, who had a pretty young baby, like not a kid. And you just wonder, like they stayed with the organisation, obviously played along with them. Don't know if they had anything negative experiences with them, but it's an interesting one because you would think this situation, you'd be like, oh, that team. And also Becky's a mum herself, the coach, the actual coach who Dearica at the time spoke out against and said, she was responsible for a lot of it.
Yeah.
I just find that very interesting, that situation, because I would say the Aces are probably, at the time, with a team with probably one of the most mums on the team. Like, not many WNBA teams have multiple mums.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm interested to hear if there's been quotes from some of those players.
Yeah.
So we'll have a look at that. But for anyone listening who's interested in this, I'd love to hear your perspective.
Yeah.
And if you know more than we do, we want to hear about it and we want to talk about it on our next pod. A good one, Alice, we're going to wrap up. I have noticed during this chat, you got a bit of bling on.
I do.
I'm going to have to up my bling game.
Bit
The
of
only
bling,
bling
yeah.
I have is my extra time shirt. So for those of you watching,
That was a good segue.
the Crumbs is a part of the Extra Time family.
Yep.
So you can check out the Crumbs pod via the Extra Time YouTube channel.
Yep.
And follow the boys who do an Extra Time pod each week. But we'll be back next week
Yes,
to
we
talk
will
more
be.
things women's sport. Flick us through your ideas. What do you
Yep.
want us to talk about? What do you want us to debate? Alice and I are happy to go
Happy
head
to
to head,
debate,
and happy
yeah.
to disagree,
Happy to
and
do
I'm
it
happy
again.
to always be right. Thank you for joining
Okay.
us. Have a great week, Alice. See you next week.
See you next week.